Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Chair, here with you at No Soundbites Allowed, and I am being joined by my guest, who is Eduardo Dibos. He is from Peru, and it's going to be a very, very interesting conversation because I don't think people are really ready to hear what we're going to be talking about, which means you need to hear it. But without further ado, I'm going to jump right into our conversation. If the format looks a little different, folks, it's because we're over Zoom, but that won't stop us. Hello, Eduardo. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I also want to thank our very good friend in common, John Restucha, for the invitation. And it's a pleasure to be here with you and with your audience.
Oh, absolutely. We always enjoy having these conversations. Sorry, I started the whole thing off and didn't even get myself all set. John connected us, and I'm very happy about that because I think this is an incredible timing to be speaking with people in other countries and reflecting on what's going on here in the United States and understanding the impact, both because of the election and even without the election, of the United States on other parts of the world. And so before I get to that, let's take a second and understand a little bit about you. So very simply, Eduardo, who are you? What's it like being in Peru?
Right. So just for your audience to know what Peru, I wanted to say first that we're a country in South America. We're west from Brazil and Argentina, south from Colombia. Our capital city is Lima. I live in Lima. It's a city of 10 million inhabitants, and it's by the Pacific coast. What I do here in Lima is I'm currently in law school, and I'm the director of the Leadership Institute in Peru. Just as LI Mission is in the United States, our focus is to train in order to grow the number of conservatives and make them better defenders of freedom. Besides that, I love politics, I love history, I consider myself a conservative, so I'm really active in politics, and I think the mission of my life is to spread the message of liberty for new generations of Peruvians and youngsters just as I am.
Okay. Now, for a lot of people who may not be familiar with some other aspects of Peru, I believe you are 97th in the world GDP, 32 million people in the nation in total. Peru is the largest of the cities there, although you have about 10 cities with over 250,000 people each, if my research is correct on that. There's a large influence in Peru from Europe, from Japan, from Hispanic influence as well as I believe it's 4 different indigenous peoples from that region. Is this all correct?
It's very correct. Yeah, good research, Mike. It's very correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and a slightly higher altitude than what would be commonly found in most of America because of the mountainous regions.
Right.
All right.
Correct.
See, folks, I do pay attention and get ready for my interviews. I like to get some understanding. Now, in Peru, and now you've been in the United States before. Is that correct?
Yeah, many times.
Okay. I assume that because, one, you're speaking English and you speak well, but here's a great question. In Peru, is English a very common second language, or is it, because some countries where they have many different cultures, they may use one language as a main language. How is it there?
The main language is Spanish. 95% of the people here speak Spanish. 5% speak indigenous languages, as you said. We have 300 types of different languages, and they're all over the jungles of Peru, for example. But how do people as me know English? Is that they are taught in school. I actually went to an American high school run by American Catholic priests, so that's how I know English. I got I'm very fortunate to have had this type of education, and but many of the schools of the middle class, the high class, and thank God the poorer
Hmm.
classes, they are given the chance to be learning English. So that's a very positive aspect. And people here in Latin America, even though we all speak Spanish, we know that if we want more chances or better chances to grow our businesses or grow our opportunities in the world, we need to start speaking English.
Yeah, it's kind of a universal language for many countries, kind of like France. French used to be going back in the 18th century. English now is going in the 20th and 21st.
That's right.
So you've been in the United States, you've been in Peru. How long were you in the United States?
Uh, I was there where I met John. That was from January to March of this year.
Oh, 2020.
However,
Okay.
yes, of this year. However, my first time in the U.S. when I was 6 years old, and I went to Disney World in Orlando, Florida.
Well,
And I visit. Yeah, actually, I have two siblings living in Miami, Florida. I've been to New York. I've been to Los Angeles, so I'm really aware of American culture, and I've had the luck to visit the U.S. many times.
okay. Well, that's a good thing. So that 2020 wasn't your first experience of America, which
No.
I don't think is the best experience of any country this year. It's been that kind of year for everyone.
Yeah, and one thing is that everyone here, not only in Peru but in Latin America and probably in the world, is that they are very driven by American culture in a way. For example, one type of culture everyone consumes, then we can speak if this is good or bad. It's the music,
Hmm.
movies, series, the books we read, the products we consume, the food we have. I have a McDonald's and a Burger King 5 minutes away from my house.
There you go.
You see, you guys are everywhere, and I think that's a positive impact on the average, on the overall.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's really interesting because I've lived in Moscow and
Wow.
back in the 90s and there's only one McDonald's in all of the Soviet or former Soviet Union. And I remember the 8 hour lines that people would wait on, literally hundreds of people to try and get into this. And it would cost them, well, a family vacation. It would be tons of money for them. It was pennies on the dollar for me. I don't think Peru is in as dire an economic situation as we see the former Soviet Union was. Are prices similar for the McDonald's there than here? Say, as an example, a Big Mac's like $5. Would it be similar there?
Yeah, and it's actually cheaper. It can be here $3.
$3 American or $3 Peruvian? Because I believe the exchange rate's 3.5 to 1.
No, I'm converting to dollars. So
Okay.
yeah, our currency is called sol,
All
as in
right.
the sun, and it's around 3.1 sol is or I'm sorry, $1 is 3.5 soles.
Right. That's what I saw
Yeah,
when I looked it up.
yeah,
Which is a lot better because in the Soviet Union, it was varying on a daily basis and was somewhere between on any given day, usually somewhere between 300 and 700 rubles to $1,
yeah. That's
which is,
very different. And one thing is that we're blessed by the economic and political reforms our country underwent is that we have a very stable economy. You see countries such as Venezuela and Argentina where the prices are skyrocketing. However, here, because of this macroeconomic responsibility and fiscal responsibility, people are growing. We know that the prices today are going to be probably the same ones tomorrow. So that's very positive overall.
see, and I'm glad you're bringing that up because I wanted to get into a lot of people may not be familiar in the United States. that there have been some significant changes in Peru. Now, I know a lot of Americans look at South America as, and don't take this badly, it's a saying from back in the 80s, the banana republics, it was called. That mostly meant Central America, the northern part of South America, where we had governments constantly turning over.
Exactly.
And it was a very, very tumultuous time. Now, that's not to say that Peru didn't have some difficult times as well. You had more of a dictatorship, authoritarian government up until about 1993. And then I see that you made a change, and you're kind of a mix of a representative democratic system, and yet there's some elements of, if I've seen my sources correctly, of a Chinese governmental influence in certain parts. Is that correct? And how does that work?
Yes, it's very interesting. I'll try to give the most complete summary in the following minutes, but I wanted to start and saying by the year 1990, only 30 years ago, Peru was considered a failed state. It is not away from the truth that you said that governments in South America and Central America were considered banana republics, because we kind of were. The situation here was horrible. People were literally starving to death. The poverty rates were incredibly high. We had what you can call an elephant-sized state. We had rampant statism. We had, before 1980, in the 60s and in the 70s, we had a socialist authoritarian regime.
Yes.
We had a dictatorship that was driven, for example, in the pillar of anti-Americanism. They hated they hated America.
Yeah.
They hated capitalism. They hated freedom. They looked at the Soviet Union as a role model. That caused Peruvian society to decay. We had poverty rates of 80%. We had hyperinflation. We had terrorism. We had a very, very dangerous terrorist group called the Shining Path that was killing people in the Peruvian Andes and in Lima. They actually put a bomb. This is the generation of my parents' story, but they put a bomb 15 minutes away from where I live.
Wow.
They were putting bombs everywhere, only 35 years ago. So that situation was terrible. And in 1990, the change began. You mentioned 1993, and that was a very important year. That was the year in which Peru published its new constitution. What happened? We elected 3 years prior to that, in 1990, a guy that no one knew. In the 1990 election campaign, we have running Mario Vargas Llosa, who right now is a Nobel laureate. He's a very well-known writer, and he's a very famous, I can say he's a libertarian. Not a conservative, but a libertarian, but a figure that put economic freedom, for example, which is the pillar we all share, here in Peru. He changed things forever, but he lost the election. Who won the election? Alberto Fujimori, who was a Japanese descent Peruvian. He's a Japanese. He was the first ever Japanese guy to be elected as president outside Japan. And he was elected on the basis, not even of freedom, but he was kind of center leftist. But he adhered to the proposals of the other candidate that was opening Peru to the world, which is going for capitalism, going for international trade, going for a smaller government. And that's what they did. However, in 1992, Fujimori did what is called a self-coup. He closed every institution in government. He closed the judicial power. He closed the Congress. And by closing, I mean he went with the tanks, actual tanks, not allowing the other parties to take control of that. It was practically a refundation of the state, a new constitution by all that means.
Yeah.
And what happened from there? We have a similar story as in Pinochet in Chile. We have a very authoritarian leader that made the reforms the country needed. So up from that point, from 1993 to the current year 2020, poverty has been reduced from 60% to 15%. Imagine that. So we're in a very much better position. Generations of Peruvians are growing with food on their plates, with money in their pockets, and with books, with educations. That was something that Peruvian 30 years ago never had. And that's my quick summary of Peru. And there are many other things, but it's very, very interesting, I think.
Oh, it's quite interesting. And
What a journey, yeah.
it's an incredible journey. And I've seen and I've been in situations where tanks are rolling down the streets. And that is not fun. I have been there. I have seen it. It's not an experience anyone should have to go through. And so many people have. And I think that's why a lot of people love America, because we don't go through that. And we have that stability, which is a great example. But that's not to say that Peru has been perfect. And I'm going to get into the American politics in a second. Obviously, things are very interesting. In the last week, you've had 4 presidents. There's been 4 individuals who have come in. They've had a problem with the Congress. They've been voted out of office by 2/3, and a new person's come in. The current gentleman, and I can't pronounce his name properly, so I apologize for that, is a mostly unknown individual who has no real party affiliation like we would understand it in America. It's somewhat like a parliamentary coalition, kind of like what we would see in England or Israel, that he's trying to pull together to introduce himself to the public and to calm things down. Is this an accurate understanding?
That's an accurate understanding, and this is what happened. In 2016, we elected a right-wing president.
Right.
It was this guy was a Polish descent Peruvian. His last name was Kuczynski, a very intelligent man, graduated from Cambridge and Princeton. He was a very fine economist. However, he sucked at politics. Terrible politician. Okay? And you have something. You can be graduated from Harvard, from Yale, or from Pennsylvania, whatever, but you can be a bad person or a bad professional. That does not make you a politician. Well,
yes.
So he won. He was a president, but he did not have the majority of Congress. Who had the majority of Congress? I mentioned you that our president in the 90s was this Japanese guy, Fujimori. Who is the leader of the opposition today? Keiko Fujimori, the daughter of Fujimori. They're still around. And this is what happened, Mike. It's incredible. Both parties from the right, for the first time in history, we were in good power through democratic institutions. They killed both. It was what you call mutual assured destruction.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what they did. One was the president, but did not control the Congress, and one controlled the Congress, but was not in the executive. They just clashed. They hated each other, even though they mostly agree on the majority of issues. And that's one thing you see in countries such as Peru, different from the US. You can agree with the principles, and I'm follower of Ronald Reagan, that was able to unite the right in the terms that conservatives were with them, neoconservatives were with them, libertarians were with them. Here, this is impossible. People hate each other, and that's it. They won't work together, and they don't care about what happens in the country. And that's what happened. This all degenerated when this guy, the Kuczynski guy, the president, was involved in corruption scandals, and they impeached them. They impeached the guy, and just as Nixon did before the impeachment, he
Step down.
resigned. Okay,
Yep.
so that's one president down. The second
Yes.
one, the vice president. Even though we were part of a right-wing coalition, the vice president was a leftist or a center leftist, and that's one thing. That's very different from the U.S. to Latin American country. That's the second lesson I wanted to point out. Morton Blackwell always says personnel is policy. It's going to be impossible for a Democrat to run in a Republican platform, for example, or vice versa.
Sure.
Here in Peru, it's possible. You can have right wingers in a centrist party or a leftist party or some leftist or centrist, whatever, in a right wing party. So this guy, very intelligent, as I said to you, graduated from Princeton. He had a leftist as a vice president, and they left us a leftist president.
I just can't imagine that. I could not imagine. I mean, given Abraham Lincoln did in fact do that, and he's the last one I remember who ever did that in American history. I can't imagine that in modern days. So I that's just incredible right there.
It is. So that was the second president since 2016. And what happened again? This guy also involved in corruption. They impeached the guy. He did not resign. They actually impeached the guy, and he got 80% of the votes in Congress to sack this guy, and he was sacked. That was 1 week ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So who was the president?
A farmer.
We had a second vice president, but it was a woman, and she resigned 1 year ago. So she was out of the game.
Okay.
Who was the president now? The president of Congress. What happened with the poor guy? Population, or what we called the street. Now we don't have a democracy. We have what we call the ochlocracy, which is the dictatorship of the street, the dictatorship of the majority. They did not like the guy. The people, the majority of people, was with the leftist president that was badly put out of office. Okay?
Okay.
So he lasted in the presidency, in the executive, only 5 days. Why? Because incredible protests arise, and when this guy was, they say, okay, that's it with you. 2 people died from what they call police brutality. I don't think that was the thing. They even say the protesters killed the other protesters, but it is 2 unfortunate deaths. That's what I think, and there are some proofs that the police did not kill the guy. It was actually another guy who was also protesting.
Oh God, that's crazy.
Incredible.
That's just crazy.
So constitutionally, the president of Congress was the legitimate president. However, he did not have political nor social support. So what happened? What are the rules of this crazy constitution that we have, which is good in the economic point, but is not good on the political arrangement field? The Congress has to elect a new guy. That was it.
Yeah.
Sent a new list to put the president of the Congress in power. Who is this guy? And you have introduced this guy. I somehow consider this guy very similar to the Princeton graduate president we had 3 years ago. Very intelligent man, very academic. I think he has a PhD from the State University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Okay, so this guy is an academic, but he does not have a party. Or he's part of a party that only have 9 members in Congress. A very small party, but this party is aligned with the leftist media and the leftist establishment. So this guy, a 76-year-old guy called Francisco Sagasti, is the new president. He was not supposed to be your president. I don't think he was democratically elected because he wasn't. It was because of the riots we have. It's now our new president, and the things are less turbulent right now because he has the goodwill of the left. And I think that's how things are here. If the left is with you, you're okay. The old guys, the old right-wing guys that were the presidents, we don't like them anymore. But if we have an old guy again who is academic, who does not look as a Peruvian, he looks American. His other last name is Hausler from Germany. They don't care about that. They just care he's from the establishment, and this guy was put into office only yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's the story, the turbulent story of ups and downs, and how we got 4 presidents in 4 years.
Yeah. And Segusa has 6 months before he has to go and run for office again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we had 3 presidents in a week.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Incredible. Well,
they say this guy is a transition president. He's transitioning only because he's going to be in office for some months, as you said, correct?
Yeah. Well, I think it gives a very interesting perspective on the U.S. situation right now with current President Trump and possibly the president-elect Joe Biden and the process that's happening in America. So it's interesting to see from outside eyes what this process looks like to the rest of the world. And also considering the comparison to troubles that Americans would never even imagine as being possible, but are a reality in the rest of the world, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to so desperately speak with you, Eduardo, is to get both of those viewpoints so that Americans can, because I think we sometimes forget, we really have a sweet spot in the world. And the worst of our problems are things everyone else would like to have. I tend to believe in terms of our economic and political turmoils, they're really not on a global scale. But tell me, how do you see this currently?
Okay. I gotta say, I was very unhappy with the result of the election. You have a red hat. I think you had a try of one thing that was not properly American and more proper of Latin American countries or South American countries. Voter fraud.
Yes.
When has that happened to you? What happened to you?
I don't know.
That was a small taste of what we have here. But you're not supposed to have that. You guys are the role model. You guys are the beacon of freedom. And as you were saying, for you, I mean, poverty might be a problem. There's people that's poor in America, but I don't know, 5%, 10%,
13% average,
13%. We have here not only poverty, but extreme poverty. People that live with $3 a day, families that run on $5 a day, for example. So we see here things that are important to us, that are problems. But since you guys have had the costume of not having those problems, as you said, you make the smaller problems giant problems, right?
True.
And I think this is, I don't know, I'm aware of the conservative narrative which I share, which is the elites on the coast. They're terrible. Why are they the elites and why they're on the left? Because they've always had everything in their lives, right?
Yeah.
Now they have food on their plate. They have money in their pockets. Now they are aware of gender identity. They are aware of supposedly racial differences, inequality. Those are things that are not really issues here because they aren't real issues, but you guys are making them up.
Well, let me ask.
And that
Oh, I have to ask. You mean that you don't have 32 genders in Peru?
we probably do, but we don't see them every day in our music, in our movies. They're seen as lunatics. They're the 2%, the 1%, I don't know. But they're growing in number. It's a threat to us
Okay.
that they're trying to look as Americans. For example, in these last few days, we have smaller groups that want to be the Antifa.
Oh, don't let them do that.
We have Antifa in a way, but not as big as your Antifa and what you guys have been up to the recent years and this liberal culture you have.
So, with America being, as you mentioned, for many countries, America is seen as a beacon of hope. For many peoples around the world, even in Iran, where they had their green movement, looking to become more like America. In Hong Kong, where they've had protests nonstop with the Chinese government trying to become more democratic and more like America. And in fact, they had their support for President Trump as well, which I thought was very interesting. As America tries to become more left-leaning and more socialist, we have people living in socialism who are saying, "Oh no, we want to become more democratic." It's just an interesting dichotomy there. Let me ask: has the instability or the potential of instability in America had an impact on the politics in Peru or even in the surrounding nations down in South America?
I think I gotta say yes, but many of that supposedly instability, it's been artificially created. Why? Because we consume only here the liberal media, or the ones that are going on TV, or the ones that are in the newspaper writing the op-eds, are establishment academics. Not only American, from regional, that see as gods your liberal academics. So they say, okay, President Trump, back in 2016, when President Trump is elected, the beacon of hope has given up on democracy. They elected this guy, Trump, who is terrible. That's what they say, what they said here. And as I was part of that 5%, 8% of the people that say, this guy is not as bad as you think. I think it's actually good. I was seen as the lunatic. So as the liberal media is saying to you, that message resonates here almost entirely. So they said President Trump was going to be very bad for foreign affairs.
Mm-hmm.
He did the peace agreements in the Middle East.
Three of them.
Peace in Israel, peace in Bahrain, the United Arab Nations, Arab Emirates, and one more country.
Sudan.
Sudan, you're correct. And they were saying President Trump is going to ruin the good relations Peru has with the U.S. or Colombia has with the U.S., who is also a very strong ally of the U.S., Colombia. They were good. They were not incredible. They were good, but they were not bad. But people were saying they were inventing problems. So the instability is okay. You've had instability over the recent years with Senate, Pelosi, impeachment. You've had it. But it has not affected the average Joe in Peru. It's mostly what we consume as media, but it has not traduced as a problem in the lives of common Peruvians.
Okay. Obviously, you are more familiar with countries like Venezuela than here in America, because okay, so you even have firsthand knowledge as well as regional knowledge that most Americans wouldn't have. It was approximately 4.5, 5 years ago that we had Senator Bernie Sanders, moving forward with the democratic socialist ideology and suggesting that America should follow the Venezuelan socialist movement. And we've seen since that time, in 2018, it was reported by the New York Times that some 5,200 Venezuelans were killed by the Venezuelan socialist government. We've seen their economy go from leading South America to now being bankrupt, essentially, and absolute chaos, including an increase in communicable diseases like measles and mumps. How has Peru reacted to that? Has that been something that's been encouraging people to become more socialist, or detracting from that?
Many lessons there, Mike. First, they say people vote with their feet.
Mm-hmm.
You have socialism in Venezuela, and today in Peru, you have almost 3 million Venezuelans here in Lima.
Wow.
They migrated. Some of them came here even walking. That's thousands, hundreds of kilometers. They didn't have $1 in the pocket. They have to walk. That's walking, I don't know, from Miami, Florida to upstate New York. Imagine that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And over mountains, no less. Yeah, that's crazy.
Exactly. So they went over a terrible situation, but how this started as democratic socialism. Bernie will never tell you socialism, nor authoritarian, terrible, killer regime of how they end up. They sell the product as a good one, as democratic. And actually, Hugo Chavez came into power through elections.
Yes.
The coups, you said, that instability, that tanks in the street kind of way, that was back in the 60s, 70s. The new form of socialist and leftist politics is winning by elections. They're kind of good politicians. So Chavez said, okay, we need a new country, we need a new constitution. They wrote a new socialist constitution, and the guy was immensely popular, 80%. They ruined the country. They were the first, they have the first #1 oil reserves in the world. They were only living by that. They expropriated oil, and all their corrupt and their elephant-sized state was run on the oil they had.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't have a single, I don't know how you measure oils.
Barrels usually.
They don't have not a single one. They're actually importing oil because they ruin the country. So one lesson for you Americans and lesson for Peruvians. The authoritarians, the communists, the ones that wants to have power for the rest of their lives, they're going to sell us the product as a good one, a kind one, a new form of being kind, as AOC says. This is going to be the golden ticket for paradise. That's what they say, but it's actually a nightmare. And they're lying to us. And they're lying to you.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all. I believe exactly what you believe. But this is about letting other people know and getting a different viewpoint. Hearing it, I think it makes a big difference for many Americans to hear from another country that has a different point of view, a different insight into some of the things we talk about. And many Americans have the luck of not having to worry or even think about these things because we're Americans. We're coming to the end of, because we're on Zoom, it's going to be cutting us off. This is only part 1. What I'm going to do is we're going to keep going. We're just going to bring this down. And so for anyone who's watching this video, what you're going to see is a short break, and then I'm going to just piece it together, and then we're going to pick right back up. So at home, you won't notice, but we're just going to bring it down and then bring it back up, and we'll pick up from where we've left off. All right? All right, folks. So we'll be right back with you in 1 second.